What's up, everybody? I'm LR Cohen, and welcome back to the Lone Ranger podcast. We got a great show for you today. Before we get started, just want to say thank you for everybody that supports me on all of my platforms on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're not following me, you need to follow the Lone Ranger 08 on Instagram and TikTok. And you also need to look up the Lone Ranger symbol when you type in the Lone Ranger podcast on YouTube. Also, if you're looking to increase your sales, my book, The Lone Ranger 10, is on sale for $4.99 on Amazon. When you download the free Kindle app, go out and support your boy. And if you're trying to make some more money, I can give you some great tips on how to overcome objections on that. So to get right into the order of business here, we're going to start with our new series. Now, we're getting a lot of feedback on the differences between home equity lines of credit and cash out refis or equity refis. So since I'm in the lending business, I figured that this next series will be just breaking down the pros and cons of everything, really. And, allowing you to make an educated decision on, how to use your equity. So this series is going to be called It's Your Equity, Pros and Cons for Using a Home Equity Line of Credit versus an Equity Refi. And we're going to be basically discussing what equity is, how you can use it in those two forms of lending, and the pros and cons from it. So, feel free to comment on everything, and we'll answer all your questions if you have any additional questions after we break down this first installment. But to get started, basically, in order to do a cash out refi or a home equity line of credit, you have to have the equity. Now, what is equity? Equity is basically the difference between the value of your home minus the balance of what you owe on the home. So to give you an example, if your home is valued at $200,000 and you owe $150,000 on it, you subtract that, the remaining $50,000 is considered your equity. And that's pretty much the potential value or the potential profit that you could possibly get if you were to sell the home. Now, how is your equity determined? It's simple. Your home has to be appraised, whether it's an official appraisal or a comparative marketing analysis or a property assessment from the county clerk office or something like that. Anything that determines how much you can get for the home if you were to sell it or how much it's worth if you had to replace it. Is considered the equity. So basically you determine that equity value by just getting the home appraised. And most of these appraisals are good for about 6 months. So, and they base these values based off of the homes in your surrounding area that sold in the last 6 months. So that's how you determine the equity, and that's what the equity is. Now, how can you use your equity, you might be asking? So there's, or rather, how much equity can you have access to, if you will? So in most cases, lenders can do several types of loans. With FHA and conventional loans, they can go up to 80% if you're doing a cash out or even a home equity line of credit. If you're doing a VA loan, you can do all the way up to 100% of the value of the home. Or if it's an investment account, you may be able to go up to 75% of the home, depending on the type of lender or the program. You may be able to go up to 90% if it's like a hard money loan or something like that if you're an investment loan. So those are the different types of loans and percentages. Again, FHA, conventional, VA, they go up to different percentages of the value of the home. So to give you another example of how that works, if you have a value of $100,000 and you want to do an FHA loan, the max loan you can do is 80%. It's 80% of the loan. And then you subtract that from what you owe, and then that's considered the real equity available if you were to do a HELOC or some type of cash out loan. So that's very important that you understand that, because some people may say, oh, I got $100,000 in equity in my home, but they only have access to, they have access to less, and they want to know why. That's the reason why. Most home equity lines of credit, most cash out refis can only go up to 80% or 100% if you're a VA loan. So if you're doing FHA or conventional and you're trying to get $50,000 in cash out, and they say, you have $50,000 in equity, it may be a little bit less than that if you do the right calculation. Now, also, one thing to consider when you're using your equity, you got to understand that fees to do the loan are also going to be taken out of that equity as well. So if they say you have $50,000 in available equity to use, remember the closing costs or settlement fees are going to be taken out of that as well. So you may not have full access to that $50,000. It might go towards, the settlement fees. You might end up getting like 30 or 40, depending on the type of program. But how can you use your equity? Let's talk about that. So your equity is used basically, in a lot of ways, but the most common ways is to pay off debt or do some type of home improvement, or maybe replenish your savings account or something like that if you're in your 70s and retired and not really living off much but retirement income. Those are typically the three ones that we see. And mostly people are trying to decide, okay, if I do a home equity line of credit to pay off my debt, what are the benefits of using that versus a cash out? Well, before you actually go into that, I think it's important to understand the benefits of just using your equity in general, as far as like what you can do with it. So you can use your equity in several ways. Like I said, you can pay off debt, you can do a home equity line of credit. You can do home improvements, savings. I know people that take cash out to buy another home, or maybe finance a wedding, or maybe pay back medical bills. There's so many different ways you can use it, but the benefits of using your equity is very simple. It's a tax-free transaction. It segments your payment. So if you're doing a consolidation, instead of you doing 10 separate payments, it can help you consolidate it into 1 or 2 payments. And you can use it multiple times throughout time. I've had people that I've refinanced their home once a year, whether it be the lower their rate, or maybe the value of their home went up and they wanted to take out more cash. So those are your typical benefits for using it. Now, if you're using it to do a consolidation loan, the biggest benefit to me really is that it generates savings. It improves your credit score, and it also places all your debts into one interest rate versus multiple rates. And then obviously, like I said, it consolidates everything into one easy payment. So that's one of the benefits for using it for debt consolidation. If you're going to use your equity for home improvements, it improves the value of your home, and it can also increase the potential profits when you go to sell the home. It's a cheaper way to finance, the home improvements. A lot of personal loans are going to be in that double-digit range as far as the interest rates are concerned. If you do it with your Cash Out Refi or a home equity line of credit, you could get lucky and get something in the low single-digit rates. So, cheaper way to finance it, and also it gives you more access it gives you more access. Yeah, actually gives you more access than a personal loan. So, like, if you ask for $100,000 of a personal loan, it's not going to be as easy as it would to take out $100,000 of your equity in your home. So definitely a lot easier to get access to big lump sums of cash. Now, there are trade-offs. Now, one of the trade-offs that you're going to experience with using your equity is it is going to increase your total balance that you owe. If you have a $100,000 home and you have $50,000 worth of debt, you combine that, it's $150,000 plus any fees associated with doing the refi or the equity loan, plus obviously interest paid back over the life of the loan. So you may end up paying a little bit more over the life of the loan if you go the full extent of the loan, rather than using the cash or the savings to pay it down sooner. And we'll talk about that, a little later. But it definitely could increase your total balance owed. So that's one of the trade-offs. Another trade-off is a potential payment increase. Sometimes people take out cash just to do home improvements. So if they take out $50,000, typically it's $100 per $10,000 finance. So you're expecting maybe about a $500 increase on average if you just do it for that. But you could leverage the payment shock if you're paying off debts and putting everything into a lower rate. And I'll show you how that works in a little bit as well. Now, another potential trade-off is it could lower the profit when you go sell the home. So, for example, if your home is worth $200,000 and you use, all but $20,000 of the equity, when you go to sell, if the home goes for a certain amount, it could affect your bottom line. So if you only have 10, maybe 20% left of equity, the profit that you were looking to turn when you go to sell may not be as high as you expected it, because you have a higher balance now. So, if the home goes for $300,000, you could end up not having as big as a profit because the balance is higher. So, it's a reset as well. A lot of these loans, in order to maximize savings, they reset these refis to 30 years. If you do a home equity line of credit, they may have, some longer term deals. A lot of them are short term, but the biggest trade-off with refis is that you hit the reset button on the term. So if you're like 5, maybe 10 years away from paying off your home and you reset to 30 years, it's a setback, but you have to look at the value and the benefit that comes with doing a refi or just using your equity in general. And I'll explain a lot of the benefits as we go along. But last but not least, when you take out your equity or when you use your equity, one of the trade-offs is that it adds an additional lien on the home. Whether if you do a home equity line of credit, that's another lien on your property. So when you go to sell, that's another lien that has to be satisfied before you can turn any type of profit. Now, how you use your equity can set you up for success or can set you up for failure. It's so important to understand the differences between an equity refi program and a home equity line of credit. So we'll be getting into the actual meat and potatoes of what a home equity line of credit is, and then we'll move into a cash out refi later on in the series. But for this first installment, I just wanted you to understand what equity was and the pros and cons of using equity and what you can use it for. So the biggest takeaways that I want everyone to know, whether you're a consumer or whether you're just into the lending business and you're trying to figure out what's going on, your equity is basically the difference from what the value is worth and what you owe on the property. And that difference can be used to pay off debt, do home improvements, put cash in the bank, invest in another property, and a whole other list of things. There's different formats that can come that it comes in. Like I said, the home equity line of credit, which is a separate loan that goes on as a second lien on your property, or a cash out refi, where we just take the cash that we qualified you for, add it to your existing balance, and then revise the rate and payment based on a new loan amount based on today's market. So those are the two differences between a HELOC and a cash out. We'll dive deeper into what they are individually, in our next installment of our equity series. It's your equity, the pros and cons for using HELOCs and equity refis. But I hope you enjoyed this. Hope this was informative, and I look forward to our next installment. Thank you.